The emerald necklace caught the light like a trapped scream. Isabel Monroe adjusted it on the velvet display with fingertips that had learned reverence before profit, tilting the piece until the stones breathed. Around her, Madison Avenue hummed with the kind of wealth that never asked prices. She'd worked at Lavelle & Co. for 3 years, long enough to recognize the difference between clients who bought beauty and those who bought proof. The man watching her from across the showroom belonged to neither category. He stood near the watches, motionless, dressed in a charcoal suit that whispered old money. His gaze wasn't on the jewelry. It was on her hands. Isabel felt it like pressure on her spine, the way prey senses observation. She didn't look up. Instead, she moved to the sapphire bracelet, lifting it with the same careful attention, as if the stones might shatter from carelessness. "You touch them like they're alive." His voice arrived before he did, low and accented, something Mediterranean or Middle Eastern. Isabel straightened, her professional smile already in place, but it faltered when she met his eyes. Dark, unreadable, too focused. "They deserve respect," she said evenly. "Each piece has a story. And you listen." It wasn't a question. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets, studying her face now with the same intensity he'd given her hands. Isabel's pulse quickened. She knew this type, rich men who mistook sales associates for their entertainment. She'd learned to deflect without offense, to smile while building walls. "Is there something specific I can show you today, sir?" He ignored the question. Zain al-Mansouri. He didn't offer his hand. "I've been coming here for 2 years. You're the first person who doesn't treat the jewelry like inventory." Isabel said nothing. Compliments from men like him always had price tags. "I want to make you an offer." Her stomach tightened. "Here it comes. I'll buy everything you touch in this store." He paused, watching her expression shift. "On one condition." Isabel's fingers curled against the display case. "I'm not interested in 30 dinners." The words hung between them like smoke. "Excuse me?" "1 dinner each night, for 30 nights. Just conversation. Nothing more." Isabel stared at him, searching for the trap hidden in the strange proposition. "That's insane," she said quietly. "Perhaps." Zane's expression didn't change. "But I'm serious. Dinner. Public places. You choose where, if you prefer. I buy a piece from this store every night you agree to meet me. When 30 days end, so does the arrangement." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Because I'm curious." "About what?" "About whether someone who treats stones with that much care treats people the same way." It was the kind of line that should have sounded ridiculous. Instead, it felt uncomfortably honest. Isabel glanced toward the back office, where Patricia, the store manager, stood watching through the glass partition. She'd need to end this conversation before it became a problem. "I appreciate the interest, Mr. al-Mansouri, but I'm not available for that kind of arrangement." "It's not that kind of arrangement." "Then what kind is it?" He considered the question with unsettling sincerity. "An experiment in company. I find most conversations in my world exhausting. Yours might not be." "You don't know anything about me." "Exactly." The audacity of it almost made her laugh. Almost. Instead, she shook her head. "I'm going to return to work now. If you'd like to purchase something, I'm happy to assist. Otherwise, think about it." He pulled a card from his jacket, placed it on the glass counter between them, and walked toward the door without waiting for a response. Isabel watched him leave, then looked down at the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, a single phone number. She slipped it into her apron pocket and tried to forget the entire encounter. That night, she couldn't. The Brooklyn apartment she shared with her grandmother Connie smelled like garlic and tomatoes, the small kitchen barely big enough for 1 person, let alone 2. Connie sat at the table folding laundry, her hands spotted with age but still steady. "You're quiet tonight, baby," Connie said without looking up. Isabel poured herself water, leaning against the counter. "Just tired." "Tired or thinking?" "Both." Connie smiled. She'd raised Isabel since the car accident that took her parents when she was 7. 20 years later, she still read her granddaughter like sheet music. "There was a man at the store today," Isabel said finally. "A customer. He made a strange offer." Connie's hands paused mid-fold. "What kind of offer?" "Dinner. 30 nights. He said he'd buy jewelry every time I agreed to meet him." Nothing else. Just conversation. And you said no. Of course I said no. Connie resumed folding. But you're thinking about it. Isabel set the glass down harder than she meant to. I'm not thinking about it. It's bizarre. He's probably some bored billionaire looking for entertainment. Or he's lonely. Connie, rich people get lonely too, baby. Sometimes more than the rest of us. Isabel wanted to argue, but the envelope on the counter caught her eye. City of New York. Building Department. She'd been avoiding it for 2 days. She already knew what it said. Mandatory repairs, 30 days. Estimated cost, $12,000. The plumbing had been leaking for months. The electrical panel needed replacing. The front steps were crumbling. She'd been saving, but her salary barely covered groceries and Connie's medications. The number on that envelope might as well have been $1 million. You opened it, Isabel said quietly. Connie nodded. We'll figure it out. How? Same way we always do. But they both knew there was no same way this time. Isabel looked at her grandmother, 78 years old, still sewing alterations for neighbors to help with bills, still pretending everything was fine. Pride was expensive. So was love. She thought about the card in her apron pocket. That night, lying in bed, Isabel stared at the ceiling and did the math. 30 dinners, 30 pieces of jewelry. Even at wholesale, the commission alone could cover the repairs, maybe more. It was transactional, yes. But wasn't all work transactional? She sold jewelry to people who didn't need it. How was this different? Because it feels different, a voice whispered. She rolled over and tried to sleep. The next morning, she called the number on the card. Zane answered on the second ring. Isabel Monroe, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. From Lavelle & Co. I remember. I have conditions. A pause. Then, I'm listening. 1 piece of jewelry per night. I choose which piece. Dinner in public places only. No physical contact beyond what's professionally appropriate. And if I'm uncomfortable at any point, the arrangement ends immediately. Agreed. I mean it. This isn't. I understand what this isn't, he said quietly. When can we start? Tonight, 7 o'clock. There's a bistro on Lexington and 63rd. I'll be there. He hung up before she could change her mind. Isabel stood in the store's back office, her hand still gripping the phone. Patricia appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Was that Mr. Almansuri? Yes. He's a significant client. Private, discreet. If he's requested your personal attention, you should accommodate him, within reason. The words were careful, but the meaning was clear. Don't mess this up. That evening, Isabel changed clothes 3 times before settling on a simple black dress and her grandmother's pearl earrings. She told herself this was just work, extended client relations, nothing more. The bistro was warm and crowded, filled with couples and tourists. Zane was already seated when she arrived, wearing a navy shirt with no tie, looking somehow both formal and relaxed. He stood when he saw her. You came, he said. I keep my word. So do I. They sat. A waiter appeared with menus, but Zane waved them away. She'll order for both of us, he said, his eyes on Isabel. I trust your judgment. It was a small gesture, but it shifted something. Control. He was giving it to her. Isabel ordered carefully, nothing too expensive, nothing too intimate. Roasted chicken, seasonal vegetables, a shared appetizer. When the waiter left, silence settled between them. This is the part where we're supposed to make conversation, Isabel said. Is it? Wasn't that the point? Zane leaned back in his chair, studying her. Tell me why you agreed to this. Isabel hadn't expected directness. She'd prepared for small talk, for the slow dance of polite questions. Instead, he'd cut straight to the truth. She could lie. She could deflect. Or she could match his honesty. Money, she said simply. My grandmother's house needs repairs we can't afford. This seemed like a solution that didn't require me to compromise anything I wasn't willing to compromise. And what are you willing to compromise? My time, my conversation. That's all. That's more than most people offer. The appetizer arrived, burrata with heirloom tomatoes. Zane picked up the wrong fork deliberately, caught her eye and smiled. It was the first time she'd seen him smile. It changed his entire face, made him look younger, almost vulnerable. I'm terrible with these, he admitted, gesturing at the silverware. In Marrakesh, we ate with our hands. Here, there are 17 forks for 17 purposes. There are 3 forks. Exactly, 14 too many. Despite herself, Isabel laughed. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly. They ate in comfortable quiet for a while, and then Zain spoke again, his voice softer. I had a sister, Amina. She loved jewelry, not wearing it, designing it. She'd sketch pieces constantly. Necklaces that looked like constellations, rings that told stories. Past tense. Isabel heard it clearly. She sounds talented. She was. She died when she was 22, car accident in Dubai. I was on a plane to New York when it happened. Closed a deal while she was dying. His face remained neutral, but his hands tightened around his glass. I'm sorry, Isabel said quietly. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that I chose a meeting over visiting her that weekend. Sorry doesn't mean anything. The rawness in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't practiced grief. This was a wound still bleeding. Is that why you're here? She asked carefully. Because I remind you of her. Zain met her eyes. At first, maybe. When I saw you touching the jewelry the way she used to touch her sketches, with respect, with attention, yes, it reminded me of her. But that's not why I asked you to dinner. Then why? He took a long breath as if deciding whether to continue. Because I've spent 5 years trying to fill the space she left. Money doesn't do it. Success doesn't do it. I thought maybe conversation with someone who treats things with care might, even if just for 30 nights. Isabel didn't know what to say. She'd expected games, manipulation, the usual scripts wealthy men ran. Instead, she'd found grief. Real, unpolished, human grief. I can't fix that for you, she said gently. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to show up. They finished dinner talking about safer things, her grandmother's sewing business, his work in sustainable investments, the absurdity of New York rent. When the check came, Zain paid without ceremony. Outside, he flagged a car for her. Tomorrow? He asked. Tomorrow. He opened the car door himself, a gesture that felt too intimate and too formal at once. Isabel slid inside, and he closed it carefully. Through the window, she watched him walk away, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched against the autumn wind. She thought about Amina, about love and guilt, about the things money couldn't buy and the things loneliness would pay for. The next morning, a velvet box arrived at the store addressed to her. Inside, a simple gold bracelet with a small inscription in Arabic. She asked the translator app on her phone. 1. The countdown had begun. By the 5th dinner, a rhythm had formed. Zain asked questions, real ones, about her parents, about growing up with Connie, about the neighbors she used to drive to doctor's appointments in her beat-up Honda before it finally died. Isabel, in turn, learned about his childhood in Riyadh, the pressure of family expectations, the suffocating weight of inherited wealth. I'm the disappointment, he said one night over Thai food. My brothers run the family businesses. I invested in startups and renewable energy. They think I'm wasting my potential. Are you? I don't know. I'm richer than I'll ever need to be. But I'm not sure I'm doing anything that matters. Isabel thought about that, the privilege of existential crisis. But she didn't say it. Instead, she asked, what would Amina think? His expression softened. She'd tell me to stop whining and build something beautiful. So why don't you? The question lingered between them, unanswered. By dinner 12, people started noticing. A photographer caught them outside a West Village restaurant, Zain opening her car door, Isabel laughing at something he'd said. The photo appeared online the next morning. Mystery woman seen with investment heir Zain al-Mansouri. At work, Adrienne, a colleague who'd always treated Isabel with cool professionalism, suddenly became interested. So you're dating him now? She asked, her tone sharp with something that looked like envy. It's complicated, Isabel said. Complicated means you're sleeping with him. It means it's none of your business. Patricia called Isabel into her office that afternoon. Mr. Al-Mansouri has been a valued client for years, she said carefully. Whatever arrangement you have with him is your concern. But please be mindful that his reputation reflects on this store. Isabel felt heat rise in her face. I haven't done anything inappropriate. I'm not suggesting you have, I'm simply reminding you that perception matters in our industry. That night, dinner felt different, heavier. Zane noticed immediately. What's wrong? Isabel pushed her food around her plate. People are talking, at work, online. They think that this is something it's not. And what is it? I don't know, she admitted. What is this, Zane? He set down his fork, his expression serious. It started as curiosity. It became something else. I look forward to these dinners more than anything else in my day. I think about what I'll tell you, what you'll say, how you'll look when you laugh. That's what this is. Isabel's throat tightened. That sounds dangerously close to caring. Would that be so terrible? Yes. The word came out harder than she intended. Because in 18 days, this ends. That was the deal. And I can't afford to confuse this with something real. What if I want it to be real? The question hung in the air like a declaration of war. Isabel stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need to go. Isabel. I'll see you tomorrow. That's what we agreed. She left before he could argue, her heart hammering against her ribs. Outside, the autumn air bit at her skin. She walked 6 blocks before calling a car, trying to steady her breathing. The next morning, a woman walked into Lavelle & Co., wearing Chanel and certainty. Soraya Al-Zahir, Zane's ex-fiancée. Isabel recognized her from the society photos she'd stupidly Googled late one night. Soraya was everything Isabel wasn't, polished, connected, fluent in the language of old wealth. You must be Isabel, Soraya said, her smile surgically precise. I thought it was time we met. Adrienne watched from across the showroom, barely concealing her glee. Can I help you with something? Isabel kept her voice professional. Actually, yes. I'd like to buy a necklace. The emerald one. The piece you were adjusting when Zane first saw you. Isabel's stomach dropped. Of course Soraya knew. Of course she'd done her research. It's a beautiful piece, Isabel said carefully, retrieving it from the case. Soraya examined it without interest. How much? $45,000. I'll take it. And I'll give you $10,000 to stop seeing Zane. The words landed like a slap. Isabel set the necklace down slowly, her hands trembling with rage. That's not for sale. Everything's for sale, darling. You've already proven that. 30 dinners for 30 pieces of jewelry? That's just prostitution with better marketing. Isabel's vision blurred red. She wanted to scream, to throw the necklace, to shatter every case in the store. Instead, she took a breath and looked Soraya directly in the eyes. I'm going to ask you to leave now. I'll double it. 20,000, cash. Today. Leave. Soraya's smile never wavered. He'll get bored, you know. Men like Zane always do. And when he goes back to where he belongs, you'll still be here selling jewelry to people like me. Think about the offer. She left the check on the counter, $10,000 already written, and walked out. Isabel stared at it, her whole body shaking. Adrienne appeared at her side, barely suppressing a smirk. That was intense. Don't, Isabel warned. I'm just saying, 20,000 is a lot of money, especially for someone in your position. Isabel picked up the check, walked to the back office, and tore it into small pieces. Then she went to the bathroom and cried until her shift ended. That night, she told Zane everything. They sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's watchful eyes. Zane listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening when she described Soraya's visit. She had no right, he said finally. She thinks she does. She thinks this is temporary, that you'll go back to your world and I'll go back to mine. And what do you think? Isabel wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, seeking warmth. I think she's probably right. This has an expiration date, Zane. 12 more days and then what? You go back to your life, I go back to mine, and we pretend this was just a business arrangement? It stopped being a business arrangement weeks ago. For you, maybe. But I can't afford to think like that. Do you know what happened yesterday? The city gave my grandmother 30 days to complete those repairs. 30 days. And I just tore up $10,000 because it came from your ex-fiancé. That's not rational. That's not smart. That's me being an idiot because somewhere along the way I started confusing this for something real. Zane reached across the table, then stopped himself, remembering her rules. It is real, Isabel. At least for me. Then what happens after dinner 30? Do we keep going? Do I become your girlfriend? The jewelry store girl who caught a billionaire? Do you take me to galas where women like Soraya whisper about me? Do I smile and pretend I belong? You belong anywhere you choose to be. That's naive. Maybe, but I'm willing to try if you are. Isabel shook her head, tears threatening. I don't know if I can. Every time I look at you, I think about all the ways this could go wrong. All the ways you could hurt me without even meaning to. And I think about all the ways I could make you happy if you'd let me. The simplicity of it broke something in her. She stood abruptly. I need time. I need to think. How much time? I don't know. She left him sitting there, walked 3 blocks, and finally let herself cry properly. When she got home, Connie was waiting at the kitchen table, a pot of tea already steeping. Tell me, Connie said simply. So Isabel did. She told her everything, the dinners, the growing feelings, Soraya's offer, the impossible choice between pride and practicality. Connie listened, her worn hands wrapped around her own mug. You know what your problem is, baby? Connie said finally. You think accepting help means losing yourself. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone care for you, even if it means becoming dependent. Dependent and accepting love aren't the same thing. Your grandfather helped me start my sewing business. Did that make me dependent? Or did it make us partners? That's different. Only because you're scared, and I understand that. After your parents died, you learned to rely on yourself. But baby, you can't build a life alone. Eventually, you have to trust someone. Isabel stared into her tea. What if he's just lonely? What if I'm just filling a space his sister left? Then you'll figure it out together. Or apart. But you'll never know if you run before the answer comes. That night, Isabel looked at the 23 jewelry boxes lined up on her dresser, each one representing a dinner, a conversation, a small piece of connection. She opened the last one Zane had given her. A simple ring with a moonstone, inscribed with 23. 7 more to go. She called him at midnight. I'm not running, she said when he answered. But I'm not making promises either. We finish the 30 dinners. Then we decide. Together. A long pause. Then, together. The final 7 dinners passed like heartbeats. Fast, essential, irreversible. They talked about futures and fears, about Amina and her parents, about what love looked like when it wasn't bound by expectations. On the 30th night, Zane took her to the bistro where it all began. Full circle, he said, or the start of something new. He reached across the table, offering his hand. No more conditions? Isabel looked at his palm. Open, waiting, vulnerable. She thought about Connie's words, about the difference between dependence and partnership, about the cost of always protecting yourself. She placed her hand in his. No more conditions, she whispered. Outside, autumn had turned to winter. Snow began to fall, covering the city in quiet transformation. Zane pulled her close, and for the first time in 30 days, she let herself imagine a future beyond counting. What happens now? She asked. We figure it out, together. And in that moment, with snow melting on her eyelashes and his arms around her, Isabel believed him.